Imagine that you are a musician asked to play for the birthday party of someone you despise. With a few tweaks, a single piece of music can be transformed into a completely different character. And that is why the subject of today's video is the saddest hymn ever written.
To set the scene today, I've travelled to one of my favourite villages in Wiltshire, Fifield Bavant. Though I love chatting to you on footpaths, I'm not so good on main roads, so I'll concentrate on looking where I'm going today. Fifield Bavant is one of Wiltshire's smallest villages, and it has claim to the smallest church in the county too. St. Martin's. Last time I came here was more than 2 years ago, and some of you might remember. But if you don't, well, you're in for a treat.
Wow, the rain has nearly sealed up the door, but the sun has come out for us today as we visit St. Martin's Church in Fifield Bavant. I can't believe it was nearly 2 years ago I was last here, recording some music for Advent. But it's positively spring-like today, even though we're just coming into autumn. There's a very special atmosphere in this church, and that's why I like coming here. It's almost like a focal point for ramblers. There's a bench outside which says, "Please do sit down." It doesn't literally say that, but that's what it says to me. It says, sit down, you don't have to do anything. The world may be turning, but you may rest and be silent and still and look and listen. That's what I think anyway when I see a bench outside a church. This church has no chancel set apart, it's all one structure, and the giveaway to the age is this tiny lancet window which is from the 13th century. But my reason for coming here is because this church has a very intimate atmosphere for performing music, and it has a very tiny instrument which matches this building's status as potentially the smallest church in Wiltshire. For the benefit of those of you who don't remember this instrument from 2 years ago, this is a rather chirpy little machine called a Renatus. It's a very clever kind of organ. It does have pipes in it, but it's an excellent solution where you have very little space and you don't want an electronic organ. The way it works is certain pipes are reused. in different ranks. That might mean nothing to you, but it makes the organ more compact. For example, middle C on the flute is, I imagine, reused the octave below middle C on the 4-foot flute. Yeah, you can hear they're exactly the same note, so the same pipe, but on two different stops. It is well with my soul. You don't need a massive instrument with lots of different stops and reeds and bass pedals. You can play it anywhere and it still sounds really emotional. And perhaps the smallest instruments in the smallest churches do this hymn more justice than any other. When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. You would be amazed when you hear the story behind those words. They were written by a very successful businessman named Horatio Spafford. Spafford was born in New York, but a good deal of his business interests were in Chicago, and he had a large number of investments there. Even though he was also a church elder as well as a businessman, he seems like an unlikely person to have written such amazing poetic words to such a sombre hymn. However, just listen to the tragic story at this part of his life. In 1871, there was a huge fire in Chicago, and his entire investment there was destroyed. Around the same time, his son passed away, and while he was trying to sort out all of his business from the wreckage, he thought it would be a good idea perhaps to go on holiday with his family. So he sent his wife Anna and their 4 daughters on a ship to England, and he said that he would join them a little bit later after he'd sorted out some business work. Tragically, while crossing the Atlantic Ocean, the ship was involved in a collision and it sank in about 12 minutes. More than 200 people died, including all 4 of Spafford's daughters. Miraculously though, Spafford's wife, Anna, survived the incident and she managed to make it to Cardiff with the other 87 survivors. She sent a telegram to her husband which said, "Saved alone. What shall I do?" Horatio set sail for England, and apparently as the ship was passing the point where his daughters had died, he was inspired to write down these words: "When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll. Whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to know, it is well with my soul." The music you've just heard is the original score of the setting composed by an American songwriter and gospel singer called Philip Bliss. This was the first setting of Horatio's text, and it was published with the text in 1876. I didn't know this hymn tune until fairly recently. In fact, it was when I started making YouTube videos. I don't know if any of you have been with me for that long, but when I started filming on YouTube, what I would do is simply record hymn tunes, because it seemed like a good way of giving the channel some momentum for a chap who was far too shy to say anything on camera. So I would record one hymn tune every week, which was really difficult to do actually at the very beginning. And I had recorded lots of English hymn tunes, but I thought it would be fun to try some American ones. And that was when I discovered It Is Well With My Soul, and this fantastic tune by Philip Bliss. It Is Well With My Soul, performed at St Martin's Church in Salisbury. The music is sombre, but it's also stately and even triumphant in places, isn't it? Depending on how you play it and how powerful the instrument that you have at your disposal. This is my favourite part of these videos because I get to analyse the music for you, which is what I do best. And to make it even more informative, I've brought with me my beloved harmonium so that I can demonstrate a few points. First of all, this music is in a major key, yet it is still emotional. We sometimes associate major keys with happy and minor keys with sad or perhaps angry, but that's not true. You can write music in a major key and it is very, very emotional indeed. For example, Abide With Me. But we can also flip major key music to play it in its parallel minor, and it takes on a completely different mood. Just for fun, I did just that with the hymn tune for It Is Well With My Soul. I've been playing it in C major, but I made a few adjustments to transfer it into C minor so it becomes more funereal. And just listen to its entirely new character. It Is Well With My Soul in the sombre key of C minor, and by complete coincidence, after some thunder, it's just started absolutely pouring with rain. How apt. That really shows you in music and nature how perhaps Philip Bliss could have scored the text of Spafford's hymn, but he didn't. He chose to set it in a much more blissful major key. And that's quite telling, isn't it? Because it's so much more childlike, more sombre in a sensitive way, but also more optimistic. There are certain similarities between his music and William Henry Monk's music for Abide With Me, for example. Both mourn the loss of children. Both hymns are written in a major key. Both are mainly made up of falling phrases, followed by leaps. And listen to the same in It Is Well. Lots of falling phrases followed by leaps rather than rising phrases. Because rising phrases tend to be more triumphant, and we don't really want that in either of these hymn tunes. They're more reflective. However, the leaps in music tend to be more emotional.
So you can begin to understand how these hymns have been constructed. And in the case of It Is Well With My Soul, it all contributes to the sadness of this hymn. But also when you think of the refrain, whatever my lot, it is well with my soul. This is music which should be uplifting. There is one final point which I would love to make, and that concerns the refrain of this hymn, because it's extraordinary and I've never seen anything like it. The reason why it's so amazing is because the melody line, which is sung by the top singer called the soprano, is like a lone voice at the beginning. Without the harmony, it's just completely bare. But it's the harmony which is the comforting chorus in the background. Which almost answers this lone voice in the wilderness. Do you notice how those lower parts seem to console that highest singer? It's extraordinary how it's been composed. So I hope you understand a little bit more about that hymn tune now. There's so much more to it than it appears on the surface. The way it's been constructed in a major key with gently falling phrases and then leaps. But also this amazing refrain, a lone voice in the wilderness, which is comforted by a whisper from the chorus. It seems apt to end this video right where I began with my YouTube journey, actually, with the recording I made of this hymn at St. Martin's Church in Salisbury. After about a year of making these videos non-stop, it's time to take a week off, I think. So next week there won't be a video, but I believe there are more than 100 which you can watch and rewatch. So fill your boots. If you're new to this channel, then please do remember to click on the subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, but it makes sure that you're notified when my next video goes live. So you'll be one of the first to see it. It also helps spread my work to a wider audience, which is really, really helpful for me. So thank you very much. If you want to support me financially, then I'd be super grateful for that too. If you look underneath the video, then you'll see my PayPal link there. And if you click on that, it takes you to the PayPal donations page. And from there you can leave a small contribution if you've enjoyed this film and if you'd like to support me personally. Thanks so much for your help in advance. So, it's time to end with a full performance on a mighty organ this time. You've heard the tiny little organ at Fifield Bavant playing It Is Well With My Soul. And now it's time for the grand hill organ at St. Martin's. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. Cheerio.